Alright, so we're finally doing this. It's Christmas, and here's my present to all of you. Madara versus Aizen. So, you guys would not leave me alone about this for the past few months since I even, hinted at its existence. You wouldn't leave me alone on Xbox, PlayStation, Twitch, Twitter, Discord, YouTube. Everything I did, you guys would always bring it up. So with me today, I got my good pal, Clyde.
Yeah, I'm here. So, yeah, we would tweet basically anything. We could be sitting there like, hey, sorry guys, I can't upload this week. My family just died in a car accident. And you guys would be like, Madara versus Aizen when, question mark?
Essentially, we took a long time because there were a few delays. So I had to debunk Ichigo versus Naruto on the death battle. And we wanted to do as much research as possible. We want to make this video like a solid, chatty mass. We wanted it to be...
We want this to be the end all video, because the benefit with the Akatsuki and Espada video is that video essentially puts that entire debate to rest, and almost every person that's watched it pretty much agrees that is the end all for the debate.
Yeah, and Madara and Aizen are basically the two big old chads of their universe. They are the two household names. Almost everyone knows who Madara is. Almost everyone knows who Aizen is. So this death battle is going to be really insane. So without further ado, we're going to go over Aizen's speed, and I hope you all enjoy.
Alright guys, so I'm going to be starting off with the speed of Aizen, as Seth just said, and I just want to say very quickly that Bleach as a series doesn't actually have any official guides or statements by the author himself, Kubo, or even from characters to confirm just how fast characters actually are in the series, which is quite annoying because if you look at series like Toriko and Naruto, there are actually guides for both series and even parts in the manga for both of those series which just actually state very straightforward, hey, this guy is this fast. I mean, if you look at Naruto, we have confirmation that certain characters are light speed, lightning speed, and even sound, whereas in Bleach, it borderline doesn't even exist. So Seth and I had to do a ton of research to find out just how fast Aizen should roughly be. And after going through many ambiguous and contentious statements by characters throughout the manga, we did come up with 3 ways to pinpoint just how fast Aizen should be with the math and the methods that we've used. Now, the first one we have is the Osh Wayland Light. This is used by the Quincy's and more specifically Yuha Bark. It is regarded as a ray of light multiple times throughout the series. That's actually just what it is entirely. And Yuha uses it to pretty much, he snaps his fingers, he goes like this, and it steals the abilities of Quincy's that he deems unfit to continue fighting, and he can either give them to other Quincy's or he can just keep them for himself. Now, we have seen characters dodge this light on multiple occasions, especially the Quincy's and even some of the high-ranked Quincy's too. And one of the most key moments that happened in the manga, which is why we're talking about the Oshwayland Light, is actually the fact that Yuha has used this from the top of the Soul Palace, and he used it all the way so it hit the Quincy's at the bottom at the Soul Society. And if you're new to Bleach, it's actually a ridiculously long distance, and we have a way to scale this because Ichigo flew from the Soul Palace to the Soul Society, and let's do it like this. So if we lowball Ichigo and we comfortably say that, okay, he's only the speed of lightning, which travels at 220,000 miles per hour, because it did actually take him 9 hours at what was quoted full speed to fly from the Soul Palace to the Soul Society. By using basic math, it would come down to being 1,980,000 miles that he actually flew if it took him 9 hours to do so at lightning speed. But by lowballing him this way, it's actually blatantly wrong, because you're essentially saying that the Ichigo with his true powers at that point in the series is only as fast as he was against Byakuya, which is actually stated in the official databooks to be the speed of lightning. It actually says that Ichigo against Byakuya was the speed of lightning in Bankai when he first attains it at the very start of the series. And honestly, if you're saying that Ichigo is only that fast, you're saying that he doesn't even scale to Vasto Lorde form, which fought against Ukiura. And if you know anything about Bleach, it should be common sense what I'm implying here. So we have an actual way to scale how fast Ichigo should be. Just doing it's pretty rough, but it works. So if his base Bankai is like lightning, you can times that by 10 with a holification mask just by the fact that he was able to beat Grimjar. And the deal with Grimjar is that Grimjar actually shitted on his Bankai in just his base form, and then Ichigo with his mask was able to compete with Grimjar's Resurrection, which is actually comparable to a Bankai in multiplication, because when he transforms and fights Ichigo, he seriously absolutely cock slaps him to the point where the strength is insane, but Ichigo, as the fight progresses, does beat him with the mask on, so it can be scaled to times 10. This then puts Ichigo at 2,200,000 miles per hour if you do the times 10 multiplication, and then by throwing Ukiura into the equation, seen as he is comparable scalable to the Ichigo from the War Arc. I think that's a pretty comfortable way to scale them, because, you know, Ukiura is still, in his second release, a very impressive character, even in the War Arc. And he is someone that can even be compared to the Vasto Lorde form, because yes, he did get shitted on by the Vasto Lorde, but he did fight pretty well against it, to some extent. Okay, Ukiura first release, times 10, because it is his first release, like, seriously cock-slapped Ichigo's Hollow Mask, and that, you know, just times that by 10, 22 million miles per hour, and then you do the 10 times multiplication once again for his second release, and that is 220 million miles per hour. And once again, if you're to say that Ichigo from the War Arc is actually stronger than second release Ukiura, this would make complete sense. And then by doing that, we can use the speed 220 million miles per hour, basically base that on Ichigo, use the 9 hours that it took him to get there, and then the distance should end up being 1,900,000,000 miles that he actually traveled, because let's be honest, Ichigo is not just the speed of lightning in that part of the series, and the benefit with doing this is that Aizen is easily scalable towards Ichigo, and to some extent actually a lot more impressive than Ichigo, so it's not that far-fetched to say so. And you see, by having the actual distance between the Soul Palace and the Soul Society being roughly 2 billion miles, which is what I said before, this proves that the Oshwayland light is actually faster than light, or relativistic to light speeds, because there are panels in the manga where it clearly shows that the light is hitting someone within a couple of seconds distance, and it would make no sense for it to be a minute or 2 minutes or even 5 minutes, because characters in the War Arc are not fodder at all. They would literally be standing there like, oh man, let me just check my watch, this Oshwayland light that I have to dodge is taking quite a long time. No, it proves that the Oshwayland light is light speed, and it is relativistic to light speed if you want to lowball it. So there you go, that's that part out of the way. And the second thing we have is actually Lily Barrow, or X-Axis for those of you who know him as that, and he is a Quincy that has a Vol standing, which basically it entirely revolves around light-based attacks. He's intangible, and both Nanal / Shunsui highlight that he is attacking with light. And the third one actually touches a bit on the first method that we used, and it's pretty much that Ichigo in the databooks is stated to be lightning speed against Byakuya during the Soul Society arc, and it is incredibly easy for us to say that the god tiers in that verse are 3,000 times stronger than Ichigo in that fight, which does automatically put them around light speed, because light is roughly 3,000 times the speed of lightning. I mean, if you actually just compare Ichigo from the Soul Society arc that fought against Byakuya to someone like Ukiura's second release, which is scaled to be able to destroy California with a single Lanzadel Relampago, or destroy Melbourne 7.8 times, and then you even have good old Yamamoto, who was said to be able to destroy the entire Soul Society, which is scaled to the size of Earth. I think that puts into perspective just how different the strength difference between characters in the Soul Society and the current arcs actually are.
So when talking about Madara Uchiha's speed, especially in the Six Paths state, there's a few feats you generally have to go over. So the first one is sort of a misconception where he fights Might Guy. Now, Might Guy runs so fast that his body mass increases to the point where he starts warping gravity. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like, for example, a black hole, if it reaches, you know, the event horizon or significant enough mass, you can't even see inside of it. That's why it's black, because light cannot escape. However, obviously, Might Guy was still visible. He was just incredibly fast. There's no reason to say that he would be as powerful as a black hole. I kind of just wanted to debunk that misconception right off the bat before actually getting to his speed. Now, unlike Bleach, which is very ambiguous and controversial and weird and debatable, Madara does have data books written by the literal author of the story that just says blatantly how fast his techniques are. So Madara has a technique called Senjutsu Sage Art Storm Release Light Fang, a ninjutsu used by those who gain the Six Paths power. They emit a beam of light to bisect the enemy. Like a sharp and pointed fang, it cuts all things with the speed of light, making it impossible for the enemy to evade even one swing. This is Madara, just with one Renegon. So this is the same Madara that was blitzed, dodged, you know, fondled by Six Paths Naruto, and then he gets blitzed and chopped in half by Sasuke. He then gets another Renegon and is able to sort of toy with Naruto and Sasuke, is able to basically quadruple his limbos, and is able to launch the infinite Tsukuyomi and unlock the Sharingan, Yokage's Sharingan, that increases his power even more exponentially. Now, Madara is not as fast as Kaguya. However, he does receive many, many upgrades beyond just the Sage Art Light Fang, which was so weak that Sasuke and Naruto could casually finesse and chop him in half, where he had to Kamui away for his life. So, Madara, by this point, is easily faster than the speed of light. He's faster than his light fang. Yeah, even if you look at part 1 of Naruto, earlier on, characters like Kakashi, even as a kid with no chakra, cut lightning bolts in half. This is referenced in all the data books, even the anime, the manga. He's generally above lightning, even as a fatigued child with the lightning blade. And then you have characters such as Haku, with his ice mirrors, is capable of reflecting himself around the battlefield at literally the speed of light, fast enough to blitz Kakashi, who's faster than lightning. And most people kind of get the misconception that Sasuke and Naruto are faster than light because they were able to tag Haku. However, there are a few things to consider. For one, Haku was not trying whatsoever versus Naruto and Sasuke. He was actually putting on a ruse. He actually wanted to lose intentionally, and this was brought up by Zabuza. And the databook says it's possible for Haku to move at the speed of light, meaning he can, but it doesn't mean he's always doing such. And when Naruto fought Haku, is more like Naruto was using omnidirectional defense and offense and was just blatantly overpowering everything Haku did, regardless of his speed. So Haku couldn't keep him at bay. So there you get the idea that even characters earlier on in the series were at least, you know, the speed of light. And it's just really impossible to say that Madara's Sage Art Light Fang cannot be the speed of light, especially when the databook itself is backing it up. And of course, there's even power scaling to back this up as well. So essentially, all you need to do to prove that the God tiers are the speed of light is prove they are 3,000 times faster or stronger than Kakashi, which is very easy to do. So in Naruto, the more chakra you have, the more power and speed you have. This is shown whenever Naruto gets a little QB amp, his power and speed increase, like versus Neji, stuff like that, right? So one thing that Naruto does is he goes throughout the entire Shinobi Alliance, taps all of their shoulders, and increases all of their chakras by over 3 times the amount of chakra Kakashi has normally. And this is stated when Kakashi is planning with Shukaku how to deal with the Ten Tails, and Kakashi states his Kamui should at least be over 3 times more powerful with how much chakra Naruto gave him. So how many ninja did Naruto power up by 3 times the level of Kakashi? Now, in the beginning of the war, there were 80,000 shinobi in the war, and there was 100,000 Zetsu. And there were 5 divisions of shinobi. So I think it's important to go over all the divisions and kind of gauge a general gist of how many shinobi are still alive. So you have Kakashi's unit, or platoon, in which he was generally unfazed. He basically soloed all the swordsmen by himself with Guy. And when he returned to the battlefield and fought the tailed beast, he was generally not fatigued, spamming Kamui, lightning blades, all kinds of stuff. He wasn't tired at all, even after fighting that whole time. His little platoon was generally fun. That's at least like 15 to 20,000 shinobi right there. Darui's squad was the one on the beach. He generally had no troubles with Kinkaku and Ginkaku. He soloed them basically by himself with Kitsuchi. And of course, you have Choji and his father Choza soloed the Geto Mazo, and they generally did not suffer that many casualties either. And then you have Mifune's squad, or the commando units. They also did not suffer many squads. Really, the only squad that suffered major damage would be Gaara's squad, which was ironically one-shotted by Madara's meteors. So it's very clear that there are still at least over 10,000 shinobi, all being amplified by over 3 times the speed of lightning. So even power scaling itself, you could call it calc stacking if you want, but it's more like supporting evidence that these characters could easily be scaled to at least light speeds. And of course, Madara himself surpasses this numerous times over, and there's no reason to doubt that he's capable of those levels of speeds when even the Raikage has synapses that fire at the speed of light.
Alright, so moving on to the strength of Aizen, I just want to clear up some misconceptions very fast. So the actual Aizen that is seated in his chair in the war arc, he is actually stronger than he was against Ichigo in Ichigo's Dongai form. And this is very important because not only is it highlighted by multiple characters, but it's actually stated that just by sitting in his chair he managed to get stronger over time. Like, he wasn't actually doing anything, he was sealed the entire time in his chair and he managed to get stronger. He flexed his Reiatsu and he stopped the Mimihagi, like eyeball things. He was able to whack out a Kido without even saying the cantation, and it was even said to be stronger than the one he used against Ichigo. And in this point in the series, he's actually retained the immortality ability from the Hogyoku, whether or not it's still inside of his body in that point in the series, it's not necessarily shown, but he does keep the immortality ability because the Soul Society couldn't execute him. This is the reason why he is still in the chair and not executed as they would have just, normally done. And if you don't know how executions work in the Soul Society, they actually have this Phoenix Blade sort of execution stand where it has the power of 1 million Zanpakuto. So whether or not they've actually tried that on Aizen, that's kind of headcanon, but let's say for the fact of common sense that they did try it on Aizen, it definitely didn't work, and it is said by Central 46 that he's lucky he's actually immortal, otherwise he would have been, quote, executed.
And a really important thing is that not only is he stronger than he was when he was like transcendent or whatever, he's also still sealed for the most part while he's fighting, and while sealed, he's stronger than he was versus Ichigo. And another really important thing, this is actually very interesting. A lot of people are like, where's Aizen's Bankai and stuff? Why doesn't he activate his Bankai? Now, the thing about Aizen is that his Zanpakuto is actually 2 levels above a Bankai. So you have Shikai, Bankai, and then you have Transcendent, where your Zanpakuto fuses with your hand. And this is shown with Bankai and Transcendent Aizen. And then there's the 4th level, which is shown by the final Getsuga Tensho and Aizen after Ichigo, in which your Zanpakuto fuses with your very being. And this is shown how Aizen can put people under Kyoka or his illusions without even whipping out his sword. And he's also able to manifest his sword out of seemingly nowhere. So he was able to whip this out versus Yuha with absolutely no effort. He just came out of nowhere. He shouldn't even had his sword on him when he was in the chair, right? However, he still pulls it out. It fused with his very being. Having low spiritual pressure doesn't cause your Zanpakuto to disintegrate like it would at the end of Ichigo versus Aizen. It was in fact actually fusing with Aizen at the end of the fight. Now that we kind of got that out of the way and people are like, well, Bankai would multiply his power by 10 times because he's already 2 levels above Bankai. That's why he's so much more powerful than all the other characters, and that's why he said he transcends Shinigami and Hollows. Now, to get into his DC, a very important thing to go over when talking about the destructive capacity of Bleach are the heavy-hitting god tiers. So, the main big one is Yuha. So, Yuha was going to destroy Earth, the Soul Society, and Wako Mundo with just his sheer energy. So, basically, his energy was going to engulf all 3 of them, and this is actually shown. His physical energy is pouring out of the planet. And also, it should be noted that, yes, Yuha himself was going to destroy it because a lot of people are like, oh, well, just the balance of the planets are just going to be destroyed. However, this isn't true because this same act of his energy pouring out of the planet was going to kill Ichigo as well. And obviously, Ichigo has nothing to do with the balance of the planets or anything of the sort. He's not some sort of natural balance. He's just a character that's going to be engulfed in this tsunami of Yuha's energy. And to further prove that Yuha's energy was engulfing all these different planets and realms, in the very last chapter, I believe it was like 10 to 15 years later, you can quote me on that, or don't quote me on that, but it's a good time skip. His energy is still protruding from random parts of the Soul Society and the Earth. And Aizen even, suggests, wow, the last vestiges of Yuha's power have finally disappeared after all this time, because his energy was truly on every single realm in the Bleachverse, at least in the normal ones. Not like in every galaxy or all the universe, but at least in just the normal planets we are aware of. And of course, Aizen does scale to Yuha. Now, he's not as powerful as Yuha. However, he's still relative. He's still capable of dealing damage. He's still capable of casting illusions over him. He's not crushed by his spiritual pressure. He's still a relevant threat to Yuha, even if he's multi-planet level or large planet level.
And to add to what Seth just said, if you actually scale Aizen to Yamamoto, which he is scaled towards Yamamoto because he's fought Yamamoto before, when Yamamoto actually activated his Bankai in the War Arc, while suppressed, he dried up every single bit of water in the Soul Society, all of the water in the atmosphere, and all water/ice Zanpakuto users could not even activate their swords. It was also confirmed that Yamamoto's Bankai is the heat of the core of the sun, which comes in at around 15 million degrees Celsius or 27 million Fahrenheit. Yuha also said specifically to Hashwolf to get out of the way of the sword, which clearly implies that they can be not only damaged but also potentially killed by said sword. And while suppressed just by having Yamamoto activate the sword itself, he said that he would end up destroying the Soul Society if he continued to stay in that form, suppressing himself. So just put that into perspective, he was suppressing himself, and he had to clearly state that if I don't, end this fight in a couple of minutes or seconds, I'm going to end up destroying the Soul Society, which is scaled to the size of Earth. And considering the fact that the Soul Society is the afterlife, that it's kind of self-explanatory.
And many other captains back this up. They're like, if you don't hurry, you're going to destroy everything. So please make this quick. That's what they were all saying. And everything on the planet was being dried and affected. We know it has planetary range if it's drying every bit of moisture in the entire planet. So yes, it does have planetary range, and everyone agrees he's going to destroy the Soul Society by existing. Now, a very interesting thing about Yamamoto is this is not heat hacks. His Bankai is not some kind of exaggerated fire. It's not even fire. It's just quite literally his spiritual energy. It's quite literally just the energy within himself is so powerful that it releases a kinetic energy capable of destroying the entire planet and evaporating all water on a planet. Just his existence. Because if you recall, heat is in itself kinetic energy. So the mere fact that his pure energy is causing this means that it's actually just his destructive power in essence. And not only is he doing this just by existing, he's trying to avoid this consequence. He's purposely suppressing all the power and kinetic energy into his blade as much as he can. He's not trying to let it flow out and destroy everything. He's trying to suppress it. And even then, it's going to destroy this entire world. Now, the question is, how does Aizen scale to Yamamoto exactly? We know how he scales to kind of Yuha because obviously he fought Yuha at the very end. He was capable of finessing him, casting illusions over him. And Aizen at one point even stated, I now have the means to destroy you. So who knows what Aizen is truly capable of if he was actually pushed into a full battle with Yuha and Ichigo didn't show up.
And if you're still not comfortable with the fact that Aizen can be scaled towards Yamamoto, who is one of the strongest characters just in the series in general, when Aizen is actually first introduced into the series in the Soul Society arc, there are actually guides that state that the Aizen right there in that arc is scalable towards Yamamoto with statistics that show off their strength, their speed, their intelligence, etc. And then he later says to Ichigo when he attains his transcended form that he has actually surpassed both Hollow and Soul Reaper in terms of just raw strength, so that kind of implies that he is saying he's stronger than any Soul Reaper at that point in time. And to some extent, it's not actually that far-fetched, because while he was in one of his first transformations, the Silver Surfer mode, he was actually able to take on Isshin, Urahara, Yoruichi, and Ichigo all at once. So it wouldn't surprise me that the actual form that was fighting Dongai Ichigo could take a majority of the captains at once, if not every single one of them solo, which includes Yamamoto.
Yeah, he even considers himself a dimensional tier above Shinigami and Hollow. He thinks he's a completely different league. Now, obviously, dimensional tier is sort of out there because he's basically just saying, oh, they shouldn't even be able to sense my power. And by that logic, Ichigo would be like 6th or 7th dimensional just because Aizen couldn't sense him, which is a little bit out there. By that logic, like Shinigami would be like dimensional tiers higher than normal people, and it's just not very likely. But regardless of that, he's basically stating that he should be on an entirely different level. He was going to challenge the Royal Palace, who by lore are stronger than Yamamoto. He also knows of Yamamoto's, he has a Bankai and stuff like that. He's aware of these abilities. That's why he didn't try taking him on in his base form. He made Wonder Why. Aizen fully surpasses this, has a transcended Zanpakuto. He's very capable of fighting Yamamoto, even just in the Ichigo fight. Probably not even in his final evolution. There's more scaling to that. So Ichigo in the Hellverse movie. Now the Hellverse movie on the box set is actually confirmed to have been oversawn and written by Kubo himself. And it should be noted that Kubo didn't really state he didn't like the outcome of the story until after the movie and writing was all done. I heard rumors that it was about the shipping thing, but let's not get too far into that. The movie itself is very credible source. In the movie itself, it stated that Vasto Lorde destroys the chains of hell and blasts open the gates of hell after destroying almost every single layer of hell. Now, we don't know the exact size of hell. However, it is stated by basically a few people that if Ichigo unlocks his Vasto Lorde form again, or he lets it go, the entire world might be destroyed. He might destroy the entire world if his Vasto Lorde powers appear. And this is also backed up because Yamamoto says, I thought that the chains of hell were uncuttable. I thought those were indestructible. And here's Vasto Lorde, who can destroy the world with lore, cuts those same chains, and more than likely surpasses Yamamoto, who himself can destroy the world. And of course, Dangai is basically Vasto Lorde Hollow or White, whatever you want to call it, mixed with his Quincy powers in sort of a transcendent state. If that Bankai transcendent level versus Aizen is what surpasses Yamamoto, as Aizen's implying, there would be no inconsistency. There would be no ignoratio lanky. There'd be no reason to refute what I'm saying, because I do not contradict anything with that form of scaling.
And this makes complete sense, because there are actually two situations where Yamamoto is scared of both Aizen and the Vasto Lorde form. The first being the fact that he was shocked that the Vasto Lorde could cut the chains of hell, and the second situation is when Yamamoto finds out that Uchiha tried to recruit Aizen onto his side, and he is visibly not too happy about the situation.
Yeah, and on top of that, Shunsui goes out of his way to recruit Aizen in this war against fighters that are basically shitting on all of them. So, anyways, at the end of the day, Aizen and just raw destructive power is just easily on these planetary tiers, possibly multiple times over with scaling. There's no real exact number to give without too much headcanon. Just know that it's beyond basically planet level by merely existing if you use Yamamoto.
And look guys, we've given you multiple alternatives to prove that Aizen does scale towards these characters, and I know that most people want to see some visual evidence of like a big beam ki blast attack blowing up a planet, but just by actually scaling Aizen to the Vasto Lorde that can apparently destroy hell, Yamamoto who can destroy the world, and Uchiha who can destroy multiple worlds, that's basically all we need to say.
If you look at this from the point of the author, how does the author prove someone strong without messing up the entire plot? How do I make Uchiha planet level without him actually destroying the entire planet and plot? The way you do that is repeated statement and backed up statements. This is essentially how it's done. So when Uchiha has like 8 statements saying he's going to destroy the planet, and it's sort of physically hinted at the end of the story, it's more than likely what's going to happen. An author cannot always destroy a planet or go to an alien world to destroy it, like a Dragon Ball character or something like that. A lot of things take place in that same planet, so they can't just destroy the world or whatever else, the entire plot would be hindered. And we do know that Kubo, as the writer of Bleach, was definitely on a time crunch, so he definitely could not have a distraction just because he needed to prove that to his fanboys that Uchiha's a planet buster. So Madara's destructive capacity requires a lot less effort as well than it is to prove Aizen. Like I said before, Naruto is more straight up with what they think characters are capable of. They also have a lot of guides that back them up as well. I want to start things off by saying it's a bit anachronistic to say that these Naruto characters are only mountain level. A lot of people think that for whatever reason, because the tailed beast destroyed mountains, that's all they are capable of, even after they are surpassed numerous times over by the seemingly limitless power of the 10 tails, who was compared to a size of a small planet in just reserves of chakra by the Shinobi sensory unit. Or how the 9 tails in the original Databook was stated to be able to turn the world into ash, whether that means life wiper or etc. It kind of is backed up by the fact that Kaguya Atsushi herself was stated to be able to destroy the planet with her expansive true-seeking orb. So this is what Databook 4 states about Kaguya's jutsu. The expansive true-seeking orb is listed as a Kekemura ninjutsu. It says that she uses the divine tree to absorb chakra from all the shinobi and create a maximized true-seeking orb. The equivalent black orbs that appear behind Naruto's back when using 6 paths sage mode. It can't be compared to its dimension. Comprised of all 5 elements in yin-yang, it had the power to obliterate the world and return it to nothing. And in fact, she was stated that she was going to create an entirely new time-space. And it should be noted as well is that each little true-seeking orb behind Naruto's back is stronger than a Bijudama. Each one, it's actually stated that each one is stronger than a Bijudama. And here's Kaguya with a true-seeking orb so big it's going to engulf an entire dimension, and she's going to recreate an entire time-space that is beyond planet plus size and dimensions. It's omnidirectional, can hold a moon gravitating around the planet. And a lot of people as well are like, well, the Shinobi Alliance are what gave Kaguya that power. However, as we kind of discussed earlier, Naruto powered the Shinobi Alliance twice. One time he did it with Minato and the other sides of the Nine Tails. However, he also did it by himself completely way earlier before Sasuke even appeared. And like I said before, he powered every single member of the Shinobi Alliance by 3 times the chakra of Kakashi. And the Shinobi Alliance is absolutely nothing compared to Kaguya. And while you could say, well, the expansive true-seeking orb takes time to reach planetary levels. That's true. However, it does say something about her overall chakra, and that the sheer essence or mass of her chakra is so great that she has the potential to destroy planet plus size dimensions. And some people will even go and say that there was a star in that dimension. However, we're not going to go too far here. We're not going to get a little too crazy, all right? She was capable of destroying the entire world, at least as stated by the data book itself. And of course, Madara himself obviously scales to this. If double Renegon Madara is stronger than Naruto and Sasuke individually, and they are capable of fighting Kaguya, then Madara with 3 eyes should be pretty relative to Kaguya and sheer chakra. Now, obviously, Kaguya is more powerful. However, Madara is not like infinitely weaker or anything. He's still on the same tier level. A few more things that back this up as well is that Toneri in the last casually chops the moon in half, which is above Continental level in power, with just a swing of his sword. I don't even think he does on purpose. He just does it to try to kill Naruto. He then absorbs solar radiation, and at the end of the movie, states with just a little bit of solar radiation absorbed, he's going to destroy all Earth with a single attack. And Naruto even says, I'm not going to let you destroy the Earth, implying that Naruto is confident that Toneri actually does have the power to destroy the planet. It also should be noted that the shinobi in that same movie, just a few hundred of them from the Cloud Village, most of the Cloud Village is wiped out as well, since their entire nation was obliterated. Just a few shinobi from the Cloud Village had the power to destroy the moon. And these guys didn't even know the moon was hollow. They thought it was a full moon. They were going to teleport away and destroy the moon, as stated. Just a few hundred of them. And as we know, the tailed beasts are capable of powering these guys like in the tens of thousands. So it's very, very, very clear that on a consistent level, the god tiers in Naruto are above planet level. And it should also be noted that weaker characters like Kinshiki, who fought a heavily fatigued half-power Sasuke, is stated in his own Boruto Databook, with forbidden power that can split worlds and obliterate all things, Kinshiki hopes for the Otsutsuki clans or the Utsutsuki clans prosperity. And that means Kinshiki can split a world beyond its gravitational pull so that it does not come back together, meaning he can inflict over planetary levels of force, and he is basically fodder compared to a 3-eyed Madara, at least using scaling. So by this logic, Madara with his abilities is easily over planet levels of power, at least in terms of attack potency. And this is also kind of backed up by Naruto and Sasuke. Just by clamping their steels together, casually make a moon to seal Kaguya without even losing any energy. They actually have a whole battle after this, like nothing even happened. They got stronger, if anything. So yes, it's very clear that he's above planet level, and he does in fact seem to have a relative power to Sosuke Aizen.
Alright guys, so I think that we've covered just about everything in terms of just how raw strength these guys truly are, like how much they can destroy, how powerful they are when you scale them to other characters, and with all of that being said, we're going to jump into just who would win the fight and talk about a little bit more of their techniques.
Alright, so one thing we need to go over is that the powers of these characters are very relative. If you've got to notice, both vaguely above planet level and both vaguely faster than light. You know, you might be able to, you know, wank in your own calculations about why so-and-so is 7.89 times faster than light and the other one's like 7.63. But for the most part, it should just be noted they are generally in the same tier of powers. However, it is easier and more logical in this case to say that Madara has more power. So, for example, you have Yuha, who's going to destroy, you know, the 3 worlds with his sheer energy. And then Kaguya is going to destroy a planet plus size realm that possibly has a star. Although we're not going to use the star because obviously that's a little bit higher balled out there and it doesn't really, it's a little bit out there even for Naruto. It's not, even the data books don't really back that up. Regardless, she is going to destroy a planet plus size dimension. And Madara actually just directly scales his ability that's just way, way beyond planet level. Whereas Aizen scales to Yamamoto, who is going to destroy the planet by basically existing, or his power is going to. However, it's very hard to argue how rate or above planetary, you know, Aizen really is. And when it comes to faster than light, me and Clyde, we really, really had to stretch and even at one point resort to a bit of calc stacking at one point. I mean, we used a consistent form of calc stacking, like we used calc stacking that was backed by the lore of the series, but we really had to stretch just to, you know, kind of get to this point of Aizen being, you know, faster than light. I mean, he definitely is faster than light. However, when it goes to just mere consistency and how blatant a power is, Madara is just blatantly faster than light, possibly on multiple times by scaling.
Yeah, that's the issue too. With a lot of this research, we had Naruto, which had like facts and stats and statements which were just really blatant and straightforward. They actually told us how fast or how strong certain characters were. But when it came to Aizen, we had to do a lot of dicking around to find out the answer to make sure this video would be correct. And I suppose the benefit with this matchup is that these characters, in terms of just general abilities and speed, they're pretty well comparable, and I think that's what makes this so interesting. But just to say it once again, compared to Madara, there was a lot of messing around that went into finding out just how fast Aizen actually is.
Yeah, without a doubt. So I think when you bring it down to it, Madara is more than likely more powerful than Sosuke Aizen. However, before your heart stops, there is still techniques in hack, and there is still intelligence in this battle. Madara is not godly levels ahead of Aizen.
Now, as I said before, Madara and Aizen are very comparable. I mean, it's pretty clear that they are, considering all the stuff that we've said in this very video, but the example that I like to use when I think of these guys fighting is actually the hypothetical fight of how Madara would have fought against Kaguya. Now, Kaguya to me is a glass cannon. She is strong, she has plenty of chakra, she has lots of destructive capabilities, but she doesn't have a strong foundation in terms of her intelligence and just everything else like Madara has. I believe that Madara could beat Kaguya because he is a slippery banana, whereas Kaguya is basically a retard with a handgun. And the reason why this is relevant in this subject is because Aizen is the same deal when it comes to him matching up against Madara. Now, they're both very intelligent, so I'm not going to take that away from Madara at all, but Aizen isn't someone who just fires big explosive attacks, bring down meteors, and, you know, controls tail beasts and stuff like that. He's a lot more precise and potent with the way that he fights. If you take, for example, this, so a lot of people don't know this, but Aizen is actually considered a Keto master, which means that he can use every Keto and Hado technique in the entire series. Now, there are actually listed as over 100 different techniques that he can use. So you have anything from teleportation, there are multiple teleportation Ketos which he can also use without any cantation, which means that he can basically use them instantaneously, just like Goku would use his instant transmission by focusing where he's going to move. Aizen also has stuff that can nullify attacks. He has an attack called the Black Coffin which can bend time and space, and he also has a Keto which can stop time itself within a certain vicinity, which considering that, like I said, he doesn't have to do the cantations because of the level that he is at, he can literally just whip those techniques out with the snap of a finger.
He also has a far superior hypnosis. So if you were putting Madara in character versus Aizen in character, Aizen would more than likely instantly put this guy under hypnosis. And we know that his hypnosis works on people far stronger than himself, like with Yuha. And with Madara, Madara is more like, oh, I will put you under a genjutsu if the situation requires for it, or maybe I'll put like a subtle illusion. You could argue he might use the infinite Tsukuyomi, but I would also argue that Aizen would hit him with his illusion far before Madara even thought of using infinite Tsukuyomi against one opponent, especially with Madara is sort of arrogant. He has this very strong complex that he's the most powerful being, and that he probably would not need to resort to that to fight one person.
Yeah, he definitely has a Vegeta type personality, which is what I like about him personally. Like, he is the type of person, if we were to put these guys in character, he would actually want to see what Aizen could do. That's something people need to keep in mind if this is going to be a real fight between these two. I'm pretty confident to say that Madara would want to see what Aizen could do. Either that, or he's going to dick around, and because there will be a distance between them, Aizen can easily activate his ability, because for him to activate his hypnosis, all he has to do is unsheath his sword. That is it.
And actually, in his chair state, he doesn't even need to do that. His entire body is technically his sword at this point. So all Madara has to do is just look at his general direction. He doesn't need to
and just like Seth said, like that's actually a good point, because a lot of people are going to think, oh, well, you know, Madara can just jump up, grab his sword, and cancel it out. But here's the deal. The Aizen in the War Arc doesn't even have a sword, because he whips it out like the Renegun poles. Like, it can just appear like wherever he wants because it's a part of his body, right? That is how he got Yuha under the hypnosis from the start, because literally all that happened was Yuha visits him in jail. He's like, hey man, how you doing? And then when he's fighting later on in the war, he's like, wait, my sense of time and everything's being distorted. What's going on? And that's because Aizen just casually put him under his hypnosis without even doing anything.
If you think Madara has too good of intuition to fall for that, Yuha has the Almighty, which could literally see every future possibility and timeline simultaneously, and he still got hit by it. He still did not know he got hit by it. Even though he could see every future timeline at the same time, he still did not see it.
And that's the thing. I love Madara, but for you guys to wank him in the sense that, oh, he would know, you know, he'd definitely have a plan for that situation. Like, this is Yuha we're talking about. Like, this is the guy who can see, just like Seth said, basically any possible reality that can happen. There's no way that Madara is going to think, wait, this dude just activated an ability. I'm definitely under a hypnosis right now.
And another thing is, he actually fights people that are like masters of hypnosis and stuff like that, and they still just are never aware that they're under it, because Aizen actually commits like hypnosis that makes his opponent seem like they're winning, so that they don't actually suspect anything. and that's how he finesses them.
And there are multiple situations of this in the series. Like if you look at Shinji, who had a sword which is very comparable to Aizen's sword, but what it actually does is it just distorts your visual sort of perception of what's happening, not actually like all 5 senses like Aizen's. And basically Shinji was fighting him the whole time thinking, yeah, I've got Aizen he's on the back foot, you know, he's under my hypnosis, but the whole time Aizen had him under his.
Right. And another thing with Aizen, especially with like this vague small power gap, is he still actually does have Hogyoku abilities. And it's very likely that if Madara even did mess with him or get even a slight upper hand, regardless of this massive hypnosis, which even worked on Yuha, who could see all futures, then Aizen might actually eventually adapt and surpass Madara quite blatantly. He has, he has regeneration that he cannot be executed no matter how many times they try, and he adapts. This is actually how he most likely got more powerful while in a chair, is that the Hogyoku was just adapting him, making him more powerful. It's very apparent. So this vague power gap might actually be surpassed even if Madara somehow tagged Aizen. Now, I think the biggest thing that Madara has is the Limbo clones. How do you think Aizen would deal with Madara's Limbo?
Well, when it comes to the Limbo clones, a lot of people have this association with the Limbos being tied heavily to the Shadow clones, which when you picture a Shadow clone, you could prick it with a pin and it just explodes like a balloon, you know, they don't really strike you as something powerful. But the Limbo clones can actually one-shot Tailed Beast just with a fucking punch. Like, just think about that, just a punch can knock out a Tailed Beast. And you see, the thing with Aizen is that he doesn't have any visual prowess that helps his vision, but what he actually does have is a range of Kidos, like I briefly mentioned before. And one of those Kidos is a Kido that Shinji used in the past to rip open an invisible barrier that Aizen had around himself when he was only a lieutenant. So at the time he was fodder, but the technique itself is purely used to stop illusions and can even rip open something that is actually invisible. And if you were to say that the actual Limbo clones are on an astral plane, or they're actually made of complete chakra, then I have no doubt in my mind that if Aizen ripped open where they were, he could make them visible with that Kido technique. And if that's not enough, the actual fact of the matter is that if Aizen has Madara under the hypnosis from the very start of the battle, which most likely is the case, the Limbo clones and Madara would have absolutely no idea where Aizen is at every moment, because his hypnosis would have affected Madara and he would be completely messing with his mind. And if you doubt just how strong Aizen's hypnosis actually is, he used it on the Vizards 100 years ago, and when they appeared in the Karakura Town arc, they were still under his hypnosis.
Yeah, and for the most part, Aizen wouldn't even be visible to Madara either, so we're actually being pretty generous with what is visible or not. And it also should be noted that the second Madara is under illusion, his Limbos are also going to be construed. They're not going to work to their full efficiency, and it's just very unlikely that Madara could actually do anything further from there. Obviously, Aizen has the power to hurt Madara. Even Sakura and Zetsu could hurt Six Paths characters if they're not on guard, right? So it's very clear that Aizen, with his slippery banana tactics, does actually have the intelligence. He has the intelligence to fight people that are eons years old, have eons of experience, geniuses that can create devices that can hamper all of reality, and he's outsmarting all of these guys, whereas Madara is just fighting, some warring, basically almost borderline barbaric race of ninja. So, I mean, they have their own intelligent feats, more intelligent than most people on our planet. However, they just do not compare to eons of study or, meditation like a lot of these, Bleach characters have done. So it's very clear that, in all honesty, Aizen would more than likely be more intelligent than Madara with his illusions in relative power. There's just no real reason to say that Madara wins. So you could say that, Madara might be able to use like a soul-stealing technique. However, it should be noted that all of Bleach battles are soul-based. And if you want to go soul versus soul, Aizen's Zanpakuto itself attacks the soul. It attacks your soul itself. So if Madara has no astral defense, which he more than likely doesn't really have any, then Aizen would one-shot if we're talking about soul battles. And even Aizen's spiritual pressure attacks the soul in your existence itself. And I'd also like to argue that due to his spiritual Ryatsu kind of covering a massive area, Aizen might actually hamper the Limbo clones even if they did exist. So in all honesty, if we're talking about an in-character battle where Madara he likes to test his opponents, even versus Naruto and Sasuke, he was testing them. He didn't even attempt to go all out until he attained the third eye. In that case, Aizen just absolutely finesses and flexes on Madara. However, in a bloodlusted battle, Madara might take it, because Madara would obviously be bloodlusted and would obviously probably blitz and overpower him and probably seal him. However, in an in-character battle, a normal one, Aizen would take the day.
And another argument that people are going to make straight away is, oh, the battle would be over from the start because as soon as they lock eyes, Aizen would be under Genjutsu. But here's the deal, we're talking in the sense of personality in this fight, because if we were to just joke them off, like, there's so many different outcomes that could happen, and that's just not how we want to do this. That's boring. But essentially, what's going to happen is, because Madara isn't someone who flexes Genjutsu all the time, he likes to last out fights like Vegeta does. This is why I compared him to Vegeta before, and they have very similar personalities. He did this to Might Guy. Like, this is the guy who used the 8 gates, the Gate of Death, like one of the most powerful techniques in the series, and all Madara wanted to do was sit there and jerk off and watch him throw hands. Like, he was loving it, so I don't see why he wouldn't want to do that with Aizen, especially because when they face off straight away, Aizen doesn't even have to unsheath his sword, like I mentioned before. Like, just existing, just standing there, he would already have Madara under his hypnosis. And that's the thing, like, we've seen plenty of times in the series of Bleach, that's how Aizen fights. He's incredibly snaky, and that's just what he would do to Madara, to be honest.
Yeah, and if we're talking about Aizen's character, basically every single fight except versus Ichigo, he puts his opponent under illusion, especially if they're stronger than him, like a Yuha. He instantly puts them under illusion. Every single character in the Bleachverse he meets, he tries to put them in an illusion. So yes, it is in Aizen's character to put a character under illusion, and Ichigo is just like a plot outlier, so that Ichigo stood a chance.
And just to add to the way that Aizen actually fights, if we compare Aizen to the Ichigo in just his old Bankai that fought in the Karakura Town arc, when Ichigo trained with his dad, he actually trained for 3 months non-stop. Just 3 straight months of training with his Zanpakuto in the Dongai. And this is also proven by the fact that Ichigo was taking physical damage while he was sitting there meditating the entire time, so it was definitely straining him that entire time. And base form Aizen during that part of the series, this is before he went through any of the Hogyoku transformations, and this is even before the actual time skip when he's way stronger in the chair. He said to Ichigo that he could kill him in an instant if he actually wanted to, and flashed over to him and scared the shit out of Ichigo. So I have no doubt in my mind that Aizen's endurance could last way longer than 3 months of non-stop fighting.
Now another thing is obviously the Truth-Seeking Orb. Now the Truth-Seeking Orbs, for the most part, they're only stated to negate ninjutsu. However, you could argue that they are stronger than Bijou Bombs by a good portion. However, like I said, they're only really ninjutsu based. Like, for example, the second Hokage, Tobirama, was capable of actually grabbing one and giving it back to Obito. And we do know that Minato was capable of having the Truth-Seeking Orbs touch his jacket, and he teleported away, and his jacket didn't even have any holes in it afterwards. So the idea that the Truth-Seeking Orbs obliterate absolutely everything with no limits is a bit out there. I mean, you could wank and say that happens. However, even if one did hit Aizen, Aizen could still regenerate. He's obviously not ninjutsu. He's not a reanimation. He's not chakra-based. He's more biological or spiritual-based. And we've never seen the Truth-Seeking Orbs hinder on a spiritual level or on basically a physical level. We only seen it really on a reanimation chakra level. So Aizen would still adapt. And if anything, if he adapts to a Truth-Seeking Orb that could destroy anything, that would make it even worse for Madara.
And another thing that I want to add is that a lot of the Bleach fans are going to say, hey, well, Madara would die the instance that he gets even too close to Aizen because of how strong Aizen's spiritual pressure is in that point in the series. And that is not true, okay? That is definitely not true. And it matters because people like Renji, Ichigo, and Yhwach were all able to withstand Aizen's spiritual pressure. And very specifically Renji, because he was within that fight at the time. And Aizen has said that if he does flex his spiritual pressure, he can choose what he can destroy and what he can't. And it really just comes down to if the opponent is weak enough, they will vanish, or if they're strong enough, they can withstand it. Because even like Shunsui, for example, if he's too close to Aizen when he was taking off the seals, going by the logic of the Bleach fans, he should have vanished or lost an arm or something. So like I said, it comes down to how strong the actual opponent is that is fighting Aizen. So I'm just going to say straight away, that is not how Aizen could beat Madara. It doesn't work that way. That's just blatant fanboying. And even if we take that away from Aizen, it's honestly not that big of a deal, because let's say we want to milk Aizen as best we can, we want to just wank that dude right off, rip his dick right off. We can give him the Hogyoku and all of its abilities. So he has immortality. He can adapt to just about any situation. So, for example, if we're to say that Madara whips out his perfect Susanos that is also buffed by the Rikudo form, and he literally just slays Aizen right there, because that's not very far-fetched to say so, considering that it would get a buff from the Rikudo mode and all of the Sage Chakra. If he just absolutely blitzed him with that and chopped him up like sushi, the Hogyoku, because it has a mind of its own, would actually transform Aizen into a being that's stronger than the perfect Susanoo and Madara himself. He would continually, throughout the fight, adapt and get stronger, and then progressively get stronger than Madara to the point where he's too strong for Madara to deal with. And also, the benefit with the Hogyoku is that it can snap him out of the Genjutsu. So let's say that in a hypothetical situation that Madara is the one who, you know, pulls off the hypnosis before Aizen, the Hogyoku can actually snap him out of it for two reasons. One, it can literally bend reality and do basically whatever it wants, and the second thing is that we know for a fact that Genjutsu in the series of Naruto can be distorted by the power of someone else. So for this fight, we can't say that Aizen has chakra and then the Hogyoku also has chakra, but if we're gonna, you know, work the abilities in the same way, we can just say that the Hogyoku can either distort his spiritual pressure, or we can just say that the Hogyoku can blatantly just snap him out of it. I also think another thing that's very much worth mentioning is the fact that a lot of Naruto fans are gonna say, well, what about Chibaku Tensei? What about Almighty Push? What about all the paths of, you know, the Renegon that you can use? Now, we've highlighted basically most of them, but I also think it's worth mentioning, okay, that look, when Madara is in his Rikudo mode, all he has to do is slap his hands together and he can make 20 meteors appear in the sky just with absolute ease. I'm sure Seth and I both agree that, yeah, if he really wanted to, he could probably make something the size of a moon, if not the size of a planet, and it probably wouldn't even be that big of a deal for him to do. But the issue is that it's not really relevant in this fight, because Aizen's flying abilities are incredibly useful. He is fast as fuck, and those meteors are not moving at light speed, or even double the speed of light, or even relativistic speed, so the meteors themselves are very useless. Chibaku Tensei could be useful, but the problem is he's either going to be one under the hypnosis, and the other thing is that Aizen could most likely destroy the debris and the meteors and the rock that's going to cover him with not only his spiritual pressure, but, and look, even if Madara did get him into a position where he's getting covered by 20 Chibaku Tenseis, he's on the back foot, he can't do anything even though he's immortal, he's literally just stuck there like a magnet to a rock. And that's where the Hogyoku comes into play, because if he was stuck in the Chibaku Tenseis, he would be transformed into a being that could break out of it. As we seen last time that he got transformed by the Hogyoku, he could do this.
And to prove the Hogyoku kind of has its own sentient is that it chooses a master, and then it will like faithfully serve that master. Even from the distance, it will understand its master's feelings, what it wants, and it will kind of give you what you desire, which is why Aizen kept getting stronger. He kept evolving, regenerating, became one with the Zanpakuto, because the Hogyoku felt that's what Aizen wanted. And in fact, at the end of the day, the only reason Aizen really sort of lost, this is stated by Ichigo, is because Aizen wanted to lose deep down. He actually didn't even want to win, and deep down he felt alone because of how strong he was at this point. So the only time we've ever seen Aizen take a fat L is when deep inside he really wanted to lose, and obviously he does not want to lose against Madara. he's way past that in the chair stage. Anyways, guys, I think that's all we need to talk about. Hope you enjoyed the video.
I think we did a pretty good job with this. Like, I just want to say, from, you know, Seth and I, we both apologize for the wait, but the deal with this is a huge fucking video, and we had to make sure that we did it correctly. So to all of you guys that waited and watched it all the way through to this part of the video, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for having me on the channel, Seth. I appreciate it a lot. This has been a really good video.
I hope this answers the question of Aizen versus Madara. Madara is stronger, Aizen's a better fighter. Anyways, till next time.
これからは私が天に立つ。